Good evening and welcome to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much for joining us for this program. I am sure that you would be excited about this program, as I am. Looking forward to Sunday, the 28th of July, where the UWP will have its national convention in Marigot. And joining me this evening is one of the candidates for chairman. We have seen him many times before, and it's always a pleasure to have you on this set, Mr. Rufus Bousquet. Welcome to Newsmaker Live once again.
Well, thank you.
What an introduction, right? That's what you're thinking?
I didn't listen to the little laughter. But anyway.
Yes. Yeah, we always have a good chat.
We have a good
here.
time. I enjoy coming to your program. Thank you for having me anyway.
Well, thanks for that. I enjoy having you on. And I mean, so many things to discuss. How are you doing, first of all?
The operative question, doing great. Yeah. You know, we got a little disturbance here. Let me see if I can get this out of the way. All right. No, we're doing. I'm doing very well. I mean, I think, you know, people can see it's been a transition. It's been a long slog. I mean, you know, I've transitioned from a health perspective of being out of politics into a perspective of wanting to come in and help my party. You know, try and get its act together. And so, you know, it's a transition, and people have to get used to that, because a lot of people aren't quite used to that yet. So we got to deal with that. So here we are.
So I mean, the break from the politics, the last 2 years or so, well, almost 2 years, not 2 years quite, a year and a half, has done you well, and your health.
Oh, it's done me great. I mean, it's been wonderful. It's been an opportunity to, you know, look back and reflect, and to get a whole new perspective, both on life and on politics itself, and how you deal with it, how you deal with other people, you know, how you deal with your colleagues, how you deal with your opponents, things like that. So, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it elicits a certain level of maturity and brings about a whole new perspective in terms of how you deal with almost everything. So I think it'll be beneficial for me. It's given me a certain amount of peace with myself, and I think going forward, people will have an opportunity to see a more mature, level-headed political person and a person generally, really.
Now, we've talked about all the topics that we could have discussed in politics, as far as politics, you know, and specifically this time I want us to focus a bit on the convention, because that is something, well, not new, but rare for the UWP.
It's been a while.
we were discussing before we came on.
Yeah.
And we have not seen the UWP convention since around 2007, 2008. But I think it's 2007.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, it's been a long time when you're supposed to have a convention every year.
Right. Constitution calls for a convention every year. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened. But you know, there are a lot of things that have to be put in place prior to a convention, and clearly things that the party was just not even ready to have a convention, quite frankly. And having an underwhelming convention sometimes can be more damaging than not having any convention at all. So I think now, you know, clearly this convention is one that has attracted a tremendous amount of attention, a tremendous amount of public anxiety, public interest, you know, and quite frankly, to some extent, it has polarized people to some extent as well. So it's going to be a very interesting thing. I mean, I think people are going to be waiting with bated breath to see what the outcome of this whole exercise will be.
And when you say polarized people, what do you mean exactly?
Well, I mean, you know, people have very strong feelings about it, and as a result, you know, people are not averse to voicing their opinions, letting it be known, and letting it be known in a very strident way. I mean, people aren't shy about that. So I think to that extent, people tend to have, you know, more or less put themselves in one corner or the other. But at the end of the day, I think we're all UWPs, and you know, we'll be able to get back to the center and do what we have to do.
Well, I mean, that seems more like the American model, when you have, you know, the internal politics, the Democrats, Republicans having their conventions, and you have, you know, candidates for leadership and other positions in those parties going head to head and challenging each other, albeit they're from the same party. Is that something new that we're going to see or seen in your party?
It's new, and as a result, there are going to be teething pains, you know, because it's left to be seen the level of maturity that's going to show itself after the convention. Because, quite frankly, what you have is, because we don't have that level of experience, how people are being very careful about the sort of criticisms, if any, that are leveled at persons who are opponents in terms of various positions within the party. Because at the end of the day, people have to work together. The party has to come together. And so you have to be somewhat muted and careful in terms of what you say, because sometimes people take things personally, they take it to heart, and we don't have that level of experience in dealing with things in that manner. The United Workers' Party in the past has historically been known to get in a back room somewhere, a decision is made, and everybody just sort of falls behind that particular decision at convention, rather than having anything that has been as, you know, sort of protracted, shall we say, fight that has been going on since the various candidates were nominated.
Now, is that a good thing in your opinion, or is it somewhat damaging for the party right now? Or is the party mature enough? You talked about maturity. Is the party mature enough right now to handle that sort of that move, that new approach?
Well, it's going to depend on largely on the skills of the persons who emerge to be able to bring it all back together. Because, you know, and I don't expect that everything is going to be peaches and cream, as they say, the following day. But I think once people realize that the objectives are not to, you know, remain, shall we say, at each other, if that's the right word, but really to organize the party and put the best people in place who can do that, get the party reorganized, get the party looking like a viable alternative to the existing government, etc. I think once the process begins and people start seeing results, people start seeing an organization that looks better organized, etc., I think people will come around. I don't think that it's something that we have to fear will have any lasting negative effects or consequences for the organization.
No, I want to look at the two candidates vying for the leadership, but I want to do that a little later. I want to focus on you first, because you're vying for the chairmanship of the party.
No, I'm not vying for anything. I'm not vying for anything.
Tell me what you mean by that.
I was nominated for the chairmanship and I accepted it, but I'm not vying. You know, let me tell you, when I'm not nominated for a position within the organization, and I come on your show and I speak, I can speak a certain way. When I've been nominated for a position within the organization, there are certain things that I will not say. I am not here to promote myself at the expense of a colleague. You know, the decision rests with the delegates. They have to take that decision. I know that a lot of people would like to listen to Rufus fire with all guns blazing and so on, but this is not the place for it, and I won't do it. If anything, I can speak to some of my particular interests and objectives, etc., etc. But I will certainly not, having been nominated for a position in the party, I wouldn't do that. But of course, if I'm not sitting on the executive of the party, etc., well, I give my opinion.
Yes, and you have a lot of those.
And I've given them in the past, and I will continue to give them if I'm not charged with that level of responsibility.
But notwithstanding, I mean, you would have had some plans, you know, if you are to assume the chairmanship of the party, you would have been laying down the foundation.
You want me to give away my secrets now?
Well, not all the secrets, just a few of them. We'll not take all tonight. We'll take a few of them. I mean, you know, putting out plans for the party. You have been very vocal. You have been critical of the party at times as well. But in your opinion, what direction do you see the party needing to take at this point?
The most important thing to remember is, I mean, I'll give you an example. I was on a program. I don't think it was your program, but I was on a program or did a news clip, and I made a reference to the United Workers' Party as a mongrel organization.
Right.
Now,
I remember that.
There are people who have twisted it and said I called UWP's mongrel. I didn't do that. What I said was that the organization has become a mongrel of an organization. Now, my use of words perhaps was not the best. I'll concede that readily. But at the same time, what I meant was that the organization had become something of a mixed breed, which is really what a mongrel is. And it's just been a coming together of very disparate individuals with their own objectives, coming together for the purpose of winning elections. But that the true thrust and meaning of what the UWP represents had been lost in that process. And the organization needed to find that. Because remember, this is an organization that built the middle class in St. Lucia. This is an organization that started, you know, with Sir John going against the plantocracy and going into the banana industry. Now, we can argue about the benefits and all the problems that has caused. But at the end of the day, it did help to develop and bring about a certain level of middle-class persons in this country. The development of things like Sanssouci and Independence City,
Right.
all of these things started as small settlements that people were able to buy into and rise into a sort of a middle class. So this is something that the United Workers' Party has been known for. What we have been seeing really at this stage is that there's an eroding of the middle class. People in the middle class, small business people, etc., they're losing out. You're finding that the rich are getting richer. This is what's happening in this country. And the middle class, one or two of them may be falling into the category of the rich, but the majority of them are sliding back into lower middle class and into more of a dependent or poorer class. And so the United Workers' Party, this is what we stand for, this is what we represent. And when we go out there, people have to know and understand that that is what we're all about. And so our policies and programs and whatever it is that we put forward, people must be able to realize that this is what our objectives are, this is what we're aiming to do, and we must attempt to sell that to the people of this country. This is the politics of the future. It's not about going out there and just bad-talking people and saying, oh, they promised this, they didn't do that. There's a place for that, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is for us to say what we're all about.
So don't you think that the UWP has emerged over the years and as a result is now thrusting the way that you just described, as opposed to what it was before, an organization that pretty much developed the middle class?
Well, I think we've sort of lost that identity, you know. I mean, if you ask the average person what the United Workers' Party represents today, I don't think they can really tell you what it represents or how they think it represents them as an individual, you know. So that message has to be carried across, and everything else is built around that core theme. And the persons who participate and join this organization must recognize that and accept that as the core reality of what it is that their true objectives are within the organization. This has to be stamped there, and this is what we're all following, this is what we're all about, and this is what we're here to do. And I think until you do that, you're still left with a bunch of people who just don't really know where they're going. And the minute you do that, then it starts getting to be a personal thing. Everybody's out there doing their own thing, and that never works in the best interest of any organization.
So what do you see the role of the chairman being? I'm not talking about the role as reflected on paper,
yes,
but in terms of within the party and looking at the direction, looking at the policies, looking at the approach that the party will take. What is the key role to your mind of a chairman and would be yours if you were to be?
Well, I'm very clear on that. I'm very clear on that. First of all, the chairman is the chief officer of the party. I mean, that's numero uno. And our true great example of a chairman has been the deceased Henry Girodi.
Right.
April Henry Girodi stands as an iconic figure in the United Workers' Party in terms of that particular role. Since then, we've had people come in, but what I found is that most people defer. As chairman, they just defer to the political leader. And so the political leader is seen in a way that he ought not to be seen. Everything is almost dependent on the political leader. The political leader is the person who is expected to be the prime minister, and of course runs the executive side of government. But outside of government, the chairman runs the party. And so it's important as a chairman for you to get out there and to build a very strong, united, well-funded, and shall we say, a cohesive unit, you know, and to develop at a branch level, to build the organization from the bottom up. And that's important, not from the top down, but from the bottom up, to get all your branches in place, to get people working, to get people to understand, because our politics has devolved into something where people are looking to see what the organization can do for them, as opposed to saying, let me build an organization that will develop the country. And once the country is developing, there is a place for me if I am prepared to work hard and participate in that development. And I think it's important for us to sell that message to people, because outside of that, we have gotten into a situation where people find themselves wanting things. So you find that what we've had over the years is successive governments who come in, make promises to people, because they're always looking for salvation through governance. So the politicians are going to save us. They're going to do what's needed. And the politicians can't do it on their own. Any politician who comes and tell you, oh, we're going to come in there and we're going to give you better days or we're going to make it better, he's lying to you. You know, it's a united effort, and it's going to take all St. Lucians to do it. Persons who support the Labour Party, persons who support the United Workers' Party. And it is even more important in light of what is facing small island states such as ours. That is a reality. I spoke about that when I went on Choice TV. years ago, a year and a half ago, right after the election. And I said, I don't want the Labour Party government to fail. Well, clearly that did not make me very popular with too many UWPs, because there are people out there who say they want the government to fail. They want the government to fail so that they can prove to those who voted for the government that they made a mistake. But in doing so, what are you going to inherit if the government fails? It compounds the problem that anybody getting into government has to deal with. And in addition to that, the people who are likely to suffer the most if the government fails are the supporters of the opposition party. So I think it's highly illogical. The fact that the government succeeds in some way or the other does not mean that I can't advocate that I can do a better job than they did. And to me, that is the premise and the position from which I would be approaching my politics. You see, so this sort of negativity that we've brought into the politics of this country, where, you know, the UWP is in power, the Labour Party comes in and does everything in their power to try and undermine the government and make it difficult. Well, look what they inherited now. Now they have to deal with issues. Well, thankfully, nobody seems to be strong enough to be undermining them to the extent that they were undermining us. But the reality is, in spite of that, they have found it extremely difficult to get anything going, and I think the reality of that situation is beginning to dawn on them in a very, very real way. So we've got to realize that things must change. We cannot continue doing what we've been doing in the past. It has to change. There has to be a new perspective, and people who are in leadership positions must not be afraid to tell the rank and file of their parties, as a leader, this is the direction that I want to take. This is the direction that will not only bring us political success, which is only part of the solution. It is going to bring national success. It's going to bring about greater benefits to the people of this country, and we're going to support it on that basis. We're not in politics just to beat the other party. We're in politics to build a nation. It's about nation building.
So I
think this is what we need to do.
So are you saying, therefore, that if you were to become chairman, you would extend a hand to the ruling party so that you can ensure that they succeed, that it succeeds? You can ensure that, you know, we have some nation building, because we know, as we discussed many times, that it's tough economic times all over, not only
it's tough economic times,
all
but
over.
let's be real about it. I mean, we're going to look. We're not going to go to war with the Labour Party or the government. The government is not the government of the Labour Party. At least it shouldn't be. It should be the government of St. Lucia. So we're not going to be out doing things to undermine the government. But what I will say to you is that at the end of the day, you can't extend a hand and help somebody if they haven't even presented a plan. I mean, I'm still waiting for a plan from the government. I mean, you know, clearly they may have had a plan before, because they promised so many things that they were going to do. And so people may have been sitting there saying, okay, well, we're voting on the basis that this government has promised to do X, you know, 100 million employment and this and that and the other. But clearly, having gotten in there, the situation is far different from what was expected. And so I'm expecting a plan B, or I'm expecting something else to be done. And hopefully it'll be done with the input of the opposition, that the opposition will have some input in what's being done. I mean, you can't just give me a plan and tell me, look, accept it. Because then I have to say to you, well, that part of the plan, I don't quite agree with it. And I don't want to agree with you outside. If you give me the opportunity to be part of the whole process, then it wouldn't be necessary for me to disagree with you on the outside, and therefore create any rift or chasm within the nation.
Isn't that part of the politics? You know, say one thing.
Man, we're too small to be playing this kind of politics.
But that's the politics we've been playing for the longest time.
We need to change it, because it's hurting us. You know, and everybody is paying that price. Everybody's paying. I know it's difficult. It's not going to make me popular, but I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to do what's right. The reality is, at the end of the day, I keep telling people, trust me. Trust me. I haven't been wrong too often, you know, but they just don't want to listen. On
that note, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. We want to look at the two candidates vying for leadership, Alan Shastney and Stevenson King. Of course, Stevenson King is now the leader. So stay with us. Newsmaker Live continues right after this break.